What if everything you've been told about aging is outdated? Peter Attia says the key to living longer is mastering your habits. Eric Topol says the secret is a wave of new biotech and AI breakthroughs. Today, we combine both so you can build your own longevity blueprint in under 30 minutes.
And today, we are tackling a big one, maybe the biggest one.
Absolutely. The universal human quest. The desire for a longer, and this is the critical part, a healthier life. We're zooming in on the strategies from two of just the biggest voices in the modern longevity space.
That's right. We're looking at Peter Attia, MD, author of Outlive, and Eric Topol, MD, who wrote Super Agers.
And if you're listening, you probably wanted a shortcut. A synthesis of the best, most actionable wisdom from these two major thinkers who, and this is key, they come at the problem from pretty different angles.
Which is exactly our mission today. We're going to distill their shared philosophy, explore where their tactical roadmaps diverge, and then try to build a single comprehensive blueprint for achieving what they both call superior health span.
And that shared mission, that's really the crucial starting point, isn't it?
It is. The primary objective is not just extending lifespan, the total years you're alive, which can often include, long periods of suffering and disability.
Right.
The shared goal is maximizing health span. This is the period of life where you're free from major disease and disability with your physical and mental functions still intact.
I love the term Attia uses for this. He calls the ideal goal achieving a phase shift.
That phrase, it's maybe the most profound idea in modern longevity science. Think about the typical way we age.
Okay.
Your functional capacity and health quality, they start this slow, steady decline, maybe in your 50s. And that leads to 10, 15 years of morbidity, disease, frailty, dependence at the end of your life.
The long, slow decline.
Exactly. Attia wants to defy that. He wants your health span trajectory to stay high, ideally into your 80s or 90s, and then be followed by a very rapid, brief decline right at the very end.
So that steep drop-off at the end instead of the long, gradual slope, that's the phase shift.
That's the phase shift. And Attia's framing of how we get there is rooted in this fundamental shift in medical practice, from what he calls medicine 2.0 to medicine 3.0.
Okay, let's break that down. Medicine 2.0.
That's our current system. It's reactive. It's focused on treating acute illnesses or, managing a chronic disease once it's already fully established and you can diagnose it.
He has a great analogy for this, right? The egg.
The eggs. It's a vivid one.
Uh-huh.
Imagine someone standing on the roof of a building throwing eggs at you. Medicine 2.0 is getting really, really good at catching those eggs after they've been thrown.
Okay.
Maybe stitching up the yolks, but essentially just responding to the damage after it's happened.
And medicine 3.0.
It's climbing to the top of that building to stop the person from throwing the eggs in the first place.
Proactive.
Proactive, personalized, risk-managed prevention. And often starting decades before those eggs or the symptoms even show up. And this really comes from his unique background.
Right, he wasn't always just a doctor.
Not at all. He went from a surgical residency to quantitative risk analysis and finance at McKinsey, and then applied that, intense analytical engine back to medicine. His core principle is quantified risk mitigation. It was also deeply personal for him.
A family history.
Yeah, marked by early heart disease. And that drove him to understand the true causal nature of conditions like atherosclerosis.
So that engineering mindset gives him this very tactical focus. But then we have Eric Topol, who comes at this from a completely different universe.
A completely different angle. Topol is the technological futurist. His conviction is that while lifestyle is crucial, the most radical extensions in health span, the ultimate defeat of what he calls the refractory killer diseases, that's going to come from exponential advances in science.
So AI, omics, that sort of thing.
Exactly. AI, omics, genome editing, precision therapeutics. He's less focused on the daily execution of your workout and more on the strategic tools that are going to dramatically reshape medicine in the decades to come.
So Attia is focused on what you, the disciplined individual, can control today. And Topol is focused on what science can measure and fix tomorrow.
Precisely. Topol's goal is to leverage technology to get these hyper-personalized medical forecasts. Think about being able to integrate layers and layers of complex data.
Like what?
Your electronic health records, your omics profile, even social determinants of health, and using what's called multimodal AI to process it all. This creates a personal risk forecast decades out.
Wow.
He's obsessed with technologies like liquid biopsy, which can detect tiny amounts of tumor DNA in your blood, or using AI to track protein clusters that tell you how fast specific organs are aging. He sees these breakthroughs as the necessary leap to defeat things like cancer and Alzheimer's, where lifestyle alone often still falls short.
So what connects them? You have the engineer and the futurist. They seem worlds apart.
But they're not. What connects them is their shared rejection of our current reactive medicine. They both insist that intervention has to move to a much, much earlier point.
How much earlier?
Potentially 10, 20, even 30 years before a diagnosis is traditionally made. The time horizon for action, for both of them, is now.
Okay, so let's unpack where they completely agree. The areas where Attia and Topol have this total philosophical and scientific alignment, these are the non-negotiables.
The first one, as we've already touched on, is the focus on health span over lifespan. They fundamentally agree that if you gain 10 extra years, but you spend 8 of them severely ill, you've completely failed the mission.
It's about quality, not just quantity.
Absolutely. And Attia frames the whole strategy around mitigating the risks from what he calls the 4 horsemen.
The 4 horsemen, these are the big chronic killers.
The ones that really undermine health span. So you have atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, or ASCVD. You have cancer. You have neurodegenerative diseases, especially Alzheimer's. And then the 4th one, metabolic dysfunction.
And this leads right into the second, and I think you'd agree, maybe the most important consensus point.
I would, and that is metabolic health is the central driver.
Yeah.
The books make an incredibly strong case that metabolic derangement, things like insulin resistance, high insulin levels, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Right.
It's not just one of the horsemen. It's the common denominator that helps foster and promote the other 3.
So let's unpack that. Metabolic problems aren't just about diabetes. You're saying they're fundamentally involved in heart disease, cancer, and brain decline. How does that synergy work?
It's all about signaling and inflammation. Chronic high insulin levels are pro-inflammatory. And we know that inflammation is a huge facilitator of atherosclerosis, of plaque buildup in the arteries.
Okay.
Furthermore, that high insulin environment, it actually provides a growth advantage to many types of cancer cells. They thrive on it.
Wow. And for the brain?
For the brain, Attia points out that Alzheimer's disease is sometimes called type 3 diabetes.
Type 3 diabetes. Why?
Because the brain itself becomes insulin resistant and struggles to use glucose for energy efficiently. So if you address your metabolic health, you are lowering your risk across all 4 categories at the same time. It's the highest leverage point you have.
And Attia is really critical of how Medicine 2.0 handles this. They just wait for the official diagnosis.
They wait until your HbA1c hits 6.5%, and then they say, okay, you have type 2 diabetes.
But by then?
By then, you may have spent 20 years with severe hyperinsulinemia, high insulin levels, causing damage completely below the radar. Attia argues if any other hormone in your body got that out of balance for that long, we'd be treating it aggressively. We have to intervene so much earlier.
And critically, both of them stress that you can't just equate metabolic health with your body weight.
No, that is such a critical point. The focus on BMI is so misleading.
How so?
Well, the studies show this really concerning disconnect. Up to 40% of non-obese adults might still be metabolically unhealthy. They're suffering from insulin resistance, high triglycerides, poor glucose clearance.
Even though they look thin?
Even though they look thin. And conversely, up to 1/3 of people who are classified as obese might actually be metabolically healthy by many parameters. The metabolic syndrome, which is defined by factors like high blood pressure, high triglycerides, low HDL, that good cholesterol, and impaired fasting glucose, is a major predictor of premature death, regardless of your BMI. You can absolutely be thin and metabolically sick.
That is a huge takeaway. Which brings us to the third big consensus point. The tactical intervention they both champion more than anything else.
Yes, and that is that exercise is the single most powerful intervention.
Not just powerful, the most powerful.
The most powerful. The data supporting this is just overwhelming, and Topol provides the most cutting-edge justification for it. He notes that exercise is the only currently well-validated intervention to actually reset your biological age in humans.
Wait, say that again? Reset your biological age.
Reset it. We can track this now with advanced molecular clocks, like the DNA methylation clock known as Grimmage. We're talking about physically rolling back the clock at a cellular level, just through movement.
That's a stunning claim. What's the magnitude of the benefit?
It's incredible. Attia is so committed to this idea that he says even if exercise shortened your life by a year, it would still be worth it purely for the profound benefits to your health span.
Wow.
It maintains glucose homeostasis, it dramatically improves vascular health, and it's considered the single most powerful tool for preventing cognitive decline. Topol drills into the numbers.
Okay.
You see significant gains in life expectancy, up to about 10 meat hours per week. That's metabolic equivalent task hours.
And what does that get you?
That equates to about 3 years of life gained compared to someone who is sedentary. But the benefits don't stop there. They continue to increase, only really plateauing after 20 to 30 meat hours per week, which could push the potential gain to 4 or even 5 years.
So the message isn't just get some exercise or move more, it's move much, much more than you probably think is necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And beyond just extending your life, exercise is a systemic rejuvenator. It improves the function of your mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of every cell. It even helps rejuvenate skeletal muscle stem cells in older animals. It offers protection against things like fatty liver disease. I mean, it is the closest thing we have to a pharmaceutical cure-all.
Okay, so final consensus pillar, the value of early detection and risk quantification. Both of them just reject the current way we think about risk.
Completely. Medicine 2.0 typically assesses your risk over the next 10 years.
The 10-year risk score.
Right. And Attia argues this is disastrously short-sighted, especially for something like atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, which unfolds over decades. For a healthy 40-year-old, their 10-year risk might be tiny, but their lifetime risk is very, very high.
So you have to start in your 30s and 40s.
You have to start aggressively in your 30s and 40s to set up a successful trajectory decades in advance.
And this is where Topol's focus on technology really comes in. He's providing the tools for that early detection.
Correct. We need to move beyond these generalized population averages to personalized data. Topol is advocating for multimodal AI that can integrate all the information we have, clinical, genomic, proteomic, to generate these personal medical forecasts.
So it's a shift from what Attia calls evidence-based to evidence-informed medicine.
That's the key distinction. Evidence-based medicine uses population averages. Evidence-informed uses your individual data to guide your personalized strategy. We need biomarkers and sophisticated risk scores that can see decades into the future, allowing for aggressive surveillance and preventive strategies before you hit that crucial tipping point.
Okay, so we've established this really strong foundation: metabolic health, extreme exercise, and aggressive early risk mitigation. But when you look at Attia and Topol, they offer, radically different roadmaps for how to actually execute on those pillars.
They really do. This is where their focus diverges.
Let's start with Attia. We can call him the tactical engineer. His framework is like a step-by-step instruction manual for maximizing your biology today, using metrics you can actually measure.
And his approach is intensely rigorous. Take exercise. For Attia, it's not just one activity. It's 4 distinct, non-negotiable components.
Okay, what are they?
Strength, stability, aerobic efficiency, which is mostly zone 2 training, and peak aerobic capacity, or VO2 max. He forces you to develop capability in all 4 of these areas to prepare for what he calls the centenarian decathlon.
The centenarian decathlon. I love that concept. What does that actually look like in practice? What are the events?
It's all about your ability to maintain functional fitness when you're, say, 95. It's not about lifting the heaviest weight in the gym. It's about having the physical capacity for the essential tasks of independent living. Like being able to deadlift a moderately heavy suitcase off the floor and put it into an overhead bin, or being able to hang from a bar for 30 to 45 seconds, which is a great proxy for upper body strength, or simply being able to get up off the floor without using your hands.
So the ultimate goal is just robust functional capacity, not how you look in a bathing suit.
That's it. And he also elevates stability to the same level of importance as strength and cardio, which might seem like a small detail, but he argues it is absolutely non-negotiable.
Why? Why is stability so foundational?
Because it's what prevents injury. And an injury is the fastest way to derail your health span. Stability, for Attia, goes really deep. He emphasizes concepts like 360-degree abdominal breathing and proper foot mechanics, often borrowing from something called dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, or DNS.
DNS? That sounds technical.
It is a bit jargony, but conversationally, DNS focuses on retraining how we use our core by basically mimicking the motor development patterns of infants, how they learn to stabilize their spine before they roll over or crawl.
Interesting.
Without that fundamental stability, you're so much more likely to pull a hamstring or tweak your back while you're trying to hit a VO2 max goal, and that can send you into a downward spiral of immobility and decline.
Okay, moving on to nutrition. Attia treats it like nutritional biochemistry. He's trying to get away from the dogmatic diet wars.
He is. And his key focus is preventing the massive loss of muscle mass that comes with age, something called sarcopenia.
Because muscle is key.
Muscle is metabolic armor. It holds the key to glucose disposal and your overall metabolic health. To protect it, Attia insists on high protein minimums, at least 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight minimum, and ideally spread out over the day. This is fundamental to offsetting muscle loss, which is directly correlated with an increased risk of mortality.
And he's a big proponent of using tools like continuous glucose monitors, CGMs, not just for diabetics, but for people who are metabolically healthy. Why is that?
It's all about personalization and real-time data. A healthy person might use a CGM for a few months just to see their individual real-time response to different foods, to exercise, to sleep.
So you could see, for example, that your morning oatmeal is a problem.
Exactly. You might realize that your morning oats cause a huge glucose spike. But if you have those same oats with a handful of nuts, your glucose curve stays nice and stable. This shifts nutrition from a set of generalized rules to a highly personalized, data-driven approach designed to minimize those insulin and glucose excursions, thereby protecting your metabolic health decades earlier.
And his view on drugs and supplements, it seems very skeptical.
Highly skeptical, except for a few key molecules where the evidence is compelling. He dismisses a lot of the popular hype supplements like resveratrol or nicotinamide riboside, NR, because they failed to consistently extend lifespan across diverse mouse models.
But he gives a unique standing to one in particular, rapamycin.
He does, because it's chemically different. It consistently extends mouse lifespans by targeting a pathway called mTOR, which is a master regulator of cell growth, metabolism, and aging. Attia finds this mechanism really compelling and notes that rapamycin has shown promise in improving cardiac function in older animals.
But it has side effects.
It does. Its traditional use is as an immune suppressant in transplant patients, which has made human trials challenging. The ongoing surge is for the ideal low-dose, intermittent regimen that gives you the longevity benefits without the immune-suppressing side effects.
Okay, now let's pivot to Topol, the technological futurist. He's less concerned with your daily protein intake and much more with the next paradigm shift in biology.
That's a perfect way to put it. Topol's main thesis is the power of AI to integrate omics.
Omics, that's a catch-all term.
It is. It's short for studying the complete set of something biological. So genomics is your DNA, transcriptomics is your RNA, proteomics is your proteins, the microbiome, all of it. Alone, they're incredibly complex. But Topol says AI is the necessary engine to integrate all these layers of data to build a comprehensive personal medical forecast that is vastly more predictive than anything we have today.
Can you give us a concrete example? How would this omics integration actually look for a listener?
Okay, imagine this. You have your full genome sequenced, which gives you a polygenic risk score for heart disease. At the same time, a liquid biopsy, a blood test, identifies fragments of tumor DNA from a cancer that hasn't even formed a visible lesion yet.
Wow.
And then a proteomic analysis tracks specific protein clusters that indicate your liver is aging rapidly due to fatty liver disease. AI integrates all of this. It flags your high heart disease risk decades early, it identifies that precursor cancer risk, and it guides the timing of all your interventions.
So you're moving from reacting to symptoms to proactively managing molecular risk factors.
Years before they become a diagnosis. It's a total paradigm shift.
And he focuses heavily on these systemic biological interventions that can tackle the really tough diseases.
Yeah.
The prime example today being the GLP-1 drug class.
This is a major area of excitement for Topol. Drugs like semaglutide, they're so much more than just weight loss drugs. Obesity is a major driver of chronic body-wide inflammation. That visceral belly fat, it acts as a reservoir promoting that inflammatory state.
So by tackling obesity,
GLP-1 drugs effectively reduce inflammation throughout the entire body. And Topol points out that this reduction in systemic inflammation and the improved metabolism could potentially reduce the risk of 11 to 13 different obesity-associated cancers.
that's a systemic intervention.
It is. It's tackling metabolic derangement at a fundamental level. And what's more, they're already in clinical trials for early Alzheimer's progression because they've been shown to have an anti-inflammatory effect on the brain.
And looking even further into the future, Topol is really bullish on one-shot genome editing, specifically CRISPR technology.
Yeah, CRISPR offers the potential for curative, one-time fixes for some of the most devastating age-related diseases. We're already seeing success in experimental models for familial diseases. For instance, in mouse models of familial Alzheimer's, an injection of CRISPR reduced amyloid deposition and improved their cognitive performance. The dream extends to creating, armored CAR cells to fight solid tumors more effectively, or developing self-amplifying RNA vaccines for a more potent immune response. Topol is the optimist who believes technology will provide the ultimate defeat for the horseman that lifestyle alone can't fully conquer.
And finally, he champions advanced screening using data tools that are available right now, like polygenic risk scores or PRS.
Yes, a PRS is a powerful, cheap tool. It assesses over 1 million common genomic variants to determine your individual genetic susceptibility to common diseases like heart attack, cancer, or diabetes.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach to screening.
Exactly. Instead of saying, everyone gets a colonoscopy at age 50,
Right.
a high-risk individual identified by their PRS might be flagged to start that screening at age 42. Conversely, the lowest risk group might be able to safely wait until they're 67, saving unnecessary procedures while ensuring early surveillance for those who actually need it most. This is Topol, showing how data enhances Medicine 3.0's goal of personalized risk management today.
That brings up a really important question, though. If Topol is focused on AI and future gene editing, how accessible is this really going to be for the average person? Or is this just medicine for the wealthy?
That's the perennial challenge with any technological breakthrough, but Topol argues that the cost of sequencing and data analysis is falling exponentially. That makes tools like PRS and basic omics accessible relatively quickly. The goal is to democratize prediction.
But the treatments themselves.
He acknowledges that complex therapeutics, like one-shot gene editing, will likely start out being very expensive. The counterpoint, though, is that if you can cure a disease with a single dose, the downstream cost savings from decades of treating a chronic condition are just immense.
Okay, so let's try to combine these two visions. Attia gives us the tactical framework for what you have to do today, and Topol validates those tactics with the latest biological data and provides the technological horizon for tomorrow. What does the definitive combined playbook for longevity look like?
It starts with conquering the horseman, and you have to place the greatest, most aggressive emphasis on metabolic and cardiovascular control, because those two are just so tightly intertwined.
Attia is famously rigorous on cardiovascular risk. He advocates lowering the lipid threshold for something called apolipoprotein B, or ApoB, in LDL-C as low as possible. This is probably the most aggressive stance in his playbook. Why ApoB? We always hear about LDL-C.
Right. Think of ApoB as the delivery vehicle. It's the protein on the surface of all the bad cholesterol particles, the ones that can get through the artery wall and start the process of atherosclerosis. Attia argues it's a superior marker because it counts the total number of these dangerous particles.
So it's the particle count, not just the total concentration of cholesterol.
Exactly. You could have a normal LDL-C level, but if you have a very high number of small, dense particles, your risk is actually very high. The current guidelines, targeting 70 or 100 milli-GDL for LDL-C, he believes are far too high, especially when you consider that heart disease is a slow, cumulative process that takes decades to unfold.
So why as low as possible? Isn't there a risk of going too low?
His argument is that the goal isn't to manage risk, it's to eliminate the causative agent over a very long time horizon. Attia sees the decades between age 30 and 70 as the critical window. If you aggressively lower your ApoB in your 30s and 40s, essentially bringing your arteries to a near-zero state of exposure to these damaging particles, you fundamentally change your entire lifetime risk profile.
So Medicine 3.0 would mean starting a statin or another drug early, even if you're considered low risk by the 10-year score.
Yes. Starting pharmaceutical treatment, often statins or PCSK9 inhibitors, early and aggressively to eliminate that particle count.
And Topol's work reinforces this.
It does, by linking ASCVD to chronic inflammation. He notes that atherosclerosis isn't just a plumbing problem, it's an inflammatory disease throughout the body.
Yeah?
This is why anti-inflammatory drugs like colchicine are showing promise in reducing cardiovascular events. Reducing that systemic inflammation, whether through diet, GLP-1 drugs, or aggressive lipid management, is key to cardioprotection.
Okay, on the metabolic side, the focus shifts to managing glucose and insulin. What are the key nutritional levers based on their combined advice?
Both agree it has to be personalized, data-informed nutrition, but Attia provides a really critical warning on a specific nutrient type. He stresses the need to minimize fructose, especially in its liquid forms.
So we're talking about sugary sports drinks, sodas.
And even some fruit smoothies.
Why is liquid fructose so uniquely bad? What makes it such a powerful driver of metabolic dysfunction?
Unlike glucose, which your whole body can use, fructose is metabolized almost entirely by the liver. When you consume it in liquid form, it hits the liver all at once and just overwhelms its capacity. This leads directly to a process called de novo lipogenesis, which is a fancy way of saying new fat creation in the liver.
Which leads to fatty liver disease.
It leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. And AFLD is a massive driver of insulin resistance and overall metabolic derailment, even in people who aren't obese. Minimizing that burden on your liver is a major tactical priority.
And Topol backs this need for personalization with data.
He does. He cites a randomized trial in pre-diabetic participants where an algorithm-based Diet 1 informed by integrating clinical, biometric, and even microbiome data significantly improved glucose regulation compared to people who were just following a generalized standard Mediterranean diet. The takeaway is that general guidelines are good, but understanding your personal nutritional biochemistry is superior.
Okay, so it's personalized nutrition, minimizing high-risk ingredients like liquid fructose, and optimizing protein for muscle. But the biggest shared domain still feels like the exercise prescription, beyond move more.
This is where Attia's tactical roadmap is just essential. He says aerobic fitness has to be broken down into two distinct zones, Zone 2 and VO2 max.
Zone 2, let's define that.
Zone 2 training is exercising at an intensity where you could still hold a conversation, but you probably couldn't sing. This low-intensity, steady-state work should make up about 80% of your total aerobic training time.
80%. That's a lot. Why that specific intensity? What's Zone 2 doing for us biologically?
It is the sweet spot for maximizing mitochondrial health and metabolic flexibility. Zone 2 forces your mitochondria, your cellular power plants, to become more efficient at burning fat for fuel. This improves your insulin sensitivity and makes your body highly flexible so it can efficiently switch between burning fat and burning glucose. Healthy mitochondria are really the bedrock of metabolic health and energy production.
And then there's the other 20%, the high-intensity work for improving VO2 max.
And that is absolutely critical because your VO2 max, your peak aerobic capacity, declines steeply, up to 15% per decade after you turn 50.
Wow.
So if you start at just an average VO2 max, that steep decline means you will be functionally incapable, unable to walk up a flight of stairs without stopping by your later years. Improving your VO2 max, which you do through hard minutes-long intervals, is necessary to build a high-capacity buffer now, so that when that inevitable decline happens, you still have enough functional capacity left in your 80s.
And the second dimension is strength and stability. We know strength loss, sarcopenia, is directly correlated with mortality risk. What's the most accessible metric for a listener to track here?
Topol specifically highlights grip strength. A huge meta-analysis showed that the relationship between grip strength and all-cause mortality reduction is linear. Linear. Every 5 kilograms of hand grip strength makes a statistically significant difference in reducing your risk of dying from any cause. It's a simple, powerful proxy for your overall muscle mass, your muscle quality, and even your nervous system function. It's your connection to the physical world.
And Attia adds that dimension of stability. He argues you shouldn't just go push heavy weights without first establishing that deep core stability we talked about.
Absolutely. Think of it like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand. If your fundamental stability is poor, your strength gains will be limited, and your risk of chronic musculoskeletal injury is going to be high. Attia sees stability training as the investment that allows you to have decades of consistent, injury-free strength and high-intensity training.
Okay, let's turn to the brain. Defending the brain, cognitive function. This is probably the biggest fear for many people when they think about longevity.
It is. And both authors emphasize the non-negotiable role of sleep. Attia calls sleep a powerful anti-Alzheimer's tool, and here's why. During deep sleep, your brain activates something called the glymphatic system.
The glymphatic system. It sounds like a plumbing system.
It basically is. It's the brain's waste disposal system. It flushes cerebrospinal fluid through the brain tissue to sweep away intracellular waste, particularly the amyloid proteins that build up between neurons. If you chronically sacrifice deep sleep, you are inhibiting your brain's ability to clean house every night.
And Topol agrees.
He confirms this, noting that chronic bad sleep is a powerful cause of both metabolic dysfunction and dementia risk. They're all connected.
Are there any nutritional or pharmacological strategies for the brain that they mention?
Yes. Attia discusses the strategy of diversifying fuel. Since the brain becomes less able to use glucose in Alzheimer's, that type 3 diabetes idea shifting its fuel supply to include ketones, either through diet or exogenous supplements, is a strategy, because the brain retains its ability to metabolize ketones for energy.
And Topol points back to technology and inflammation again.
He does. The brain-saving potential of the GLP-1 drugs is profound here. Since they reduce systemic inflammation, and neurodegeneration is intrinsically linked to brain inflammation, these drugs are currently in clinical trials for early Alzheimer's and Parkinson's progression. It's an incredibly exciting avenue for treatment.
Finally, we have to talk about the pillar that often gets ignored, but that Attia elevates to the same level of importance as any physical metric: emotional health.
This is a section where Attia's personal journey really shines through, and it grounds all this science in a profound reality. Attia stresses that emotional suffering, chronic stress, self-loathing, toxic relationships can decimate your health on all fronts, and it has to be addressed.
He connects it to the longevity crisis.
He does. He points out that the substance abuse crisis and the rising midlife mortality rates, what are often called deaths of despair, they're really a mental health crisis in disguise, and that is creating a major longevity crisis in developed nations.
He argues that you can't separate the brain and the body. So how does he move from identifying that problem to prescribing a solution?
Just like physical health requires proactive training, he says emotional health demands specialized, proactive tools. He describes using concrete, actionable skills, often borrowed from something called dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT.
What kind of skills are those?
Skills like mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance. The point is that managing psychological distress and breaking these cycles of self-loathing or chronic anger is a trainable skill set. It requires proactive effort, often with professional help, to gain a better understanding of your own inner world sooner in life.
To prevent that emotional suffering from becoming physical disease decades later.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that optimizing the body is, well, it's pretty useless if the mind is in constant turmoil.
We've seen this incredible overlap in their core philosophy, but these radical differences in their focus. Attia gives us the tactical plan for today. Topol gives us the strategic horizon for tomorrow. Let's look at who benefits most from which approach.
Attia's approach is fundamentally for the practical executor. If you are the type of person who needs a rigorous, executable, quantifiable daily strategy right now, this is your playbook.
He's for the person who wants to know exactly what to do when they walk into the gym.
Exactly. Attia demands data. You must know your ApoB. You should measure your VO2 max. You need to understand your protein distribution, and you have to structure your workouts into those 4 distinct measurable modalities. He gives you the agency to act without waiting for the next drug breakthrough.
So he provides the actionable framework.
He provides the technical, tactical guidance. He's the coach who tells you exactly what to do and how to approach your doctor with specific metric demands.
Okay, conversely, Topol's approach is for the data-driven optimist.
This is the person who is interested in risk stratification, early disease forecasting, and understanding the cutting edge of biological intervention. If you are deeply curious about how AI, omics, polygenic risk scores, and next-gen therapeutics are going to transform disease prevention in the coming decades, Topol provides the strategic blueprint.
He's for the person who wants to understand the why behind the future of medicine.
Yes. He highlights the amazing tools that are emerging or are already here, like using brain organ clocks to track aging or testing for cancer gene mutations through population sequencing to create this hyper-personalized medical future.
So why is the synthesis, reading both or understanding both, better than just picking one?
Because Attia provides the agency what you control today: your diet, your fitness, your sleep, and aggressive management of known risk factors like ASCVD. But Topol provides the horizon what technology will enable for hyper-personalized prediction and powerful cures tomorrow: omics, AI, precision medicine, and one-shot biological fixes.
You need both.
You have to execute Attia's tactics diligently to maximize your health span now, while simultaneously leveraging Topol's technologies to define your personalized risk and optimize the timing of potential future interventions. It's the combination of disciplined daily action and informed, technologically enabled forecasting that creates the complete approach to achieving that phase shift.
Right. You can't just wait for Topol's technology to save you if you're currently destroying your metabolic health with your lifestyle choices.
And conversely, you can execute Attia's plan perfectly, but you could still be blindsided by a genetically determined aggressive cancer risk that only Topol's technology can forecast. You really need both to truly defy decline.
So the combined message from Outlive and Super Agers seems to be that healthy aging is not accidental. It's an intentional, proactive, and highly quantified endeavor.
That's it. We talked about the centenarians who often get to that phase shift through just pure genetic luck of favorable genes that protect them from the horsemen. The rest of us have to work hard using discipline, personalized data, and aggressive risk management to intentionally emulate that outcome.
And the power of these combined strategies, it's not hypothetical, is it? We know from large cohort studies that lifestyle factors alone have a massive impact.
A massive impact. We're talking never smoking, regular exercise, a high-quality diet, restorative sleep, social connections, and stress management. Those factors are associated with up to 24 years of added life expectancy at age 40.
Wait, 24 years? That's nearly a quarter of a century added to life expectancy at age 40 for males.
And 20.5 years for females, simply by committing to these pillars. That magnitude of return on lifestyle investment is genuinely stunning. And that's along with 8 to 10 years free of cancer, cardiovascular disease, or type 2 diabetes.
The science is just crystal clear on the potential benefit, and the combined view of Attia and Topol ensures you have a strategic plan for both the immediate tactical present and the distant technological future.
It does.
Which leaves us with the final provocative question raised by both of these books. We know longevity is possible, and we know the levers we control: fitness, nutrition, sleep, emotional health. So the question is, are you willing to embrace the proactive, quantitative, and sometimes uncomfortable steps needed now to maximize your functional capacity in the decades to come? The time horizon for action isn't 10 years from now, it's today.